My podcast is like my main converter. I have seen it where someone found my podcast, binged the episodes, and within 2 weeks opted into one of my offers. I think the shortest amount of time it's taken someone to convert, it was like 10 days. So yeah, so like I focus heavily on the podcast because that, I call it my money maker. Like,
Welcome to the Side Hustler Podcast, the podcast for women building their dreams while balancing work, family, and all the things. I'm your host, Carly LeBlanc, a wife, mom, marketer, and your side hustling friend here to teach you how to grow a brand that works for you and not the other way around. Whether you're a side hustling pro or just starting out, this is your safe place for real talk, actionable strategies, and the encouragement you need to keep going. We're here to help you make progress and not perfection. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's build your dream one step at a time. Hello, and welcome back to the Side Hustler Podcast. I'm your host, Carly, and today we are going to be tackling a topic that so many entrepreneurs struggle with, and that's how to market your business without relying on social media. If you've ever felt drained by constantly creating content, you're frustrated by Instagram's algorithm, or you just need to explore other ways to attract new clients, then this episode is going to be for you. And to help us to break everything down, I've got a powerhouse guest joining me today, Andria Singletary. Andria is a visibility strategist, podcast expert, and business coach who helps women grow their businesses without solely relying on social media. She started out as a virtual assistant and then pivoted into podcast management. And along the way, she discovered her real passion was for helping mompreneurs increase their visibility in authentic and sustainable ways. Now, she specializes in helping business owners market themselves through SEO-driven platforms like podcasting, email marketing, and strategic collaborations. And Andrea and I actually connected on Threads because I saw one of her threads specifically talking about this topic, and I knew she had so much wisdom to share, especially for the moms and the side hustlers out here who are juggling business, family, and everything in between. So, in today's episode, we're going to be diving in on why relying on social media only is holding you and your business back, alternative strategies to attract your clients and increase your sales, how to repurpose your content so you're working smarter and not harder, and practical ways to get visible without feeling overwhelmed. So, this is all about working smarter and not harder. So, grab your notebook because Andrea is about to drop some serious gems. So, let's get into it. If you're feeling stuck with social media and struggling to market your business online, I've got something just for you. I'm hosting a free 30-day social media challenge all month long, and it's not too late to join. This challenge is designed to help you finally understand how social media works for your business so you can start showing up with confidence, creating content that attracts your ideal audience, and turning followers into customers. And listen, I'm not just throwing a bunch of tasks and leaving you out hanging. We're having 2 live Q&A office hours throughout the challenge where you can ask questions, get direct feedback, and make sure you're staying on track. This challenge is completely free, so there's no excuse for you to sit out on the sidelines. Now, if you're serious about growing your brand online, sign up at cdcreativecoagency.com/challenge and join us now. That's cdcreativecoagency.com/challenge. It's also in the show notes below. Let's get you showing up and making moves online this month. Well, hello, Andrea, and welcome to the Side Hustler Podcast. How are you? Awesome. Well, I am so excited to have you here because first of all, me and Andrea, we connected on Instagram, and I am so excited because when we first connected, we were talking about how we shared the experience of being mompreneurs, and I'm really just inspired by your premise and your mission of your business. And so I'm super excited because I know there are a lot of people that are listening that may have this thought in their mind, like, I really do not like to be on social media like that, but I feel like I have to because I have to market my business. And so today we're going to get into some trendy topics about how you can market your business without necessarily relying solely on social media and how you can increase your sales without social media. So I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself and what led you to becoming a visibility strategist.
It's a long story. But just to share a little bit about me, I'm a wife. I'm a mom of two. My kids are 4 and 2 at the time of this recording. And after I had my son April 2020 at the height of the pandemic. And so I knew that I was not going to go back to like a 9 to 5 or anything like that. Like, I knew once I laid eyes on him, like, I wanted to be home with him, be there for all those first moments and stuff. And so I ended up not returning to my job. They actually shut down due to the pandemic and became a stay at home mom. And so during that first year, home with him, loved it, but really desired something for myself, desired something outside of motherhood and everything. And so I decided to look at what I could do, like from home, like in the online space and everything. So I actually started out as a virtual assistant doing all of the things and quickly discovered I did not like social media management. And I ended up actually niching down into podcast management. I really love listening to podcasts, and I wanted to support other women with getting their voices out there and making an impact that way. And so as I, niched into podcast management and supporting more clients, one of the things that I noticed was that they weren't really leveraging their podcast as part of their marketing and sales strategy. It was just this extra thing that they did. They would do like interview heavy podcast or talk about everything but their expertise. And so I sort of made it my mission to really support women with leveraging their podcast for their business. You know, podcasts are such a powerful thing. It's such a powerful way to get your name out there, get your voice out there, reach people
Mm-hmm.
across the globe and everything. And it's like, if you're putting all this energy and this time into this platform, you might as well make it work for your business, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what I like made my mission in supporting women with doing that, and absolutely loved it. But I ended up having to step back from managing podcasts at the end of 2023. We just had life happen to us. October 2023, my daughter had a seizure. The next month, my son was diagnosed with autism. And so my season of life changed. Like, I was no longer able to manage multiple podcasts and everything. Like, I needed to be there for my family more and whatnot. And so
Right.
as I was like really reflecting on, how I wanted to pivot and change my business and everything, something kept coming up for me with really being able to support women with building a business that didn't rely on social media. And so I first explored coaching, which I really love that, but I realized that I am a big strategy person. I
Mm-hmm.
really like helping you map out that plan to make it
Mm-hmm.
a reality. Like, yes, I will coach you, but I want to get all in your business and help you really plan it out and tell you, like, you need to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so like really leaning into that, I realized that a big part of how I supported my clients like with podcasting was really leveraging it for visibility to get their
Mm.
name out there, and not just getting their name out there on their own podcast, but also really helping other people to discover them and invite them to collaborate, invite them to, speak at their summits and speak in their groups and different things like that. And so that's kind of like where the whole visibility strategist thing came from. It's like, oh, you know what? I'm really helping my clients get visible and using their podcast to make these connections and whatnot, and, get in front of other people's audiences and everything. And so that's kind of like what led me down this path of being a visibility strategist. But most importantly, it really allowed me to be that present mom that I needed to be and support my family and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot, while still getting to build my business in a way that I enjoyed and everything like that.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think you do a phenomenal job because even when I'm like scrolling on threads, like I'll see your post and I'm like, oh, that hits so differently. But it's like you have a unique approach on how you tackle visibility. Like whenever you hear about visibility, most people are telling you, you have to, be on social media. You have to post all of these times. You have to go live. You have to do all of these. And there are several people that struggle with putting themselves out there simply because that's just probably not a comfort zone of them. And I understand like a part of being an entrepreneur is really putting yourself out there and getting out of your comfort zone. But I do feel like there is a way of being able to put yourself out there and increase your visibility, whereas it doesn't come off as inorganic or inauthentic to who you are. So I think that that is absolutely amazing. And so even just your journey of getting there, of figuring out where to land, like you said, you tried several different things. You tried to figure out things that worked for you, worked for your lifestyle. And every time you started something, you would figure out, I like the strategy, but I don't like this part, or I like, this part, but I'm not really into social media management. So it's like, also part of the journey is figuring out where to land by trying things and figuring out like how to piece all of the things together that you absolutely love to do. So I love that. I absolutely love that. What do you feel like is one of the biggest downsides that people see or that you believe of relying on social media to attract new clients?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is that when you rely on a single platform to generate leads, then nurture those leads, and then convert them into your offers, it's stressful because you're having to create so much content to do all of those different things. And let's be real, like the Instagram algorithm sucks.
Yes.
Like it does not play nicely with business owners. And so you're getting frustrated because you're not seeing that engagement. And like only about maybe 10% of your audience is actually seeing your content. And it's
Mm,
like, you're putting all this energy into this platform that is not really created for you. Like they
mhm.
don't want you pushing people off of their platform. You get penalized for that. And like, yes, there are things like mini chat and everything, but it just does not feel like it should be like that's not worth your time and energy as a business owner, but especially as a mom doing business. We
Mm,
have limited time. We have limited energy. And so I'm all about working smarter, not harder. So I feel like there are so many other ways to get out there where you essentially can get more bang for your buck without having to put so much energy into it. Like
yeah,
for me with podcasting, the episodes I create each week, they're going to go on and live for weeks, months, years. I have new people come into
absolutely.
my world and they will binge my podcast going all the way back to episode 1 that
Yeah.
I published over 2 years ago.
Wow.
Nobody's going back and binging your Instagram content like that.
Yeah.
Like all of it gets buried in everything. And so you really want to look at what is actually serving you well, what is actually getting you those consistent results without you having to give more of yourself because you don't have
Mhm.
more to give. Your kids take so much out of
Yeah.
you. And then if you're married, you got your husband you got to care for. And then you
Yes.
have other family, your parents, so you have siblings, like all these other responsibilities, like, you don't have time to be wasted like that.
Exactly. Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. And that's honestly, I'm so glad that you said that because I feel like coming from me as a marketer, people just feel like I'm just telling them these things because I just somehow know the secret code. But it's like I'm on Instagram, but I do understand that these social media platforms do not play in our favor at all
Mhm.
whatsoever. Yes, I mean, it does benefit you to have a presence. However, part of marketing is understanding the way things work together. You have a place where if people really just want to see visually what you do or how you do things, okay, that's where they typically go. But as far as like providing value, you cannot provide value to your potential customers in a highlight reel. And that's another reason why I decided to add podcasting to my ecosystem was because I really wanted to create a resource library for anyone that found me. If you're starting a business, if you have a job, this is the place to be for you to figure out, okay, how do I go from point A to point B? How do I go from point B to point C? But then also, podcasting serves as a search engine. So if you go on the podcast app, wherever you listen to your podcast on
Mhm.
Apple, Spotify, and you type a specific keyword or topic, you'll have tons of different, it doesn't matter if it was posted in 2016 or if it was posted yesterday, it'll all show up there and you can have a way of being able to seep through of which podcast you want to listen to. And so I think that you hit that so good. Also, even when you're talking about 10% of your audience, I feel like it's not even 10% anymore.
It
At one
don't.
point it was 10%, but now I'm like, it's like close to 5, like between 2 to 5, you know? So sitting here, and it's so easy to get just like really just overwhelmed, but then also discouraged when you're posting content. You're like, I feel like I'm spending so much time on this and it's not converting. It's like I'm wasting my time. I'm putting all of this good content out. Nobody's seeing it. I'm spending a lot of time editing it. Nobody's seeing it. Okay, what can you do to leverage your time, use your time wisely, but then also provide the same amount of value and effort into something else that actually has a higher chance of converting? So I love that. I absolutely love that. Since your standpoint is leveraging other avenues to market your business, what are some highly effective marketing strategies that business owners can use outside of social media?
Yeah, so I mean, the options are endless, honestly. But you have like your SEO driven platform. So, like we were talking about podcasting, blogging, YouTube, those are all SEO based. And what I love about those platforms is that literally the people who are actively searching for a solution, when they come across your content, they are ready to invest. They have a
Mhm.
problem, they want to solve it. And so SEO based platforms are going to bring in your highest quality leads. They're going to bring in those people who they're like, take my money because I want to solve this problem right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then you also have collaboration. So this looks like podcast guesting, speaking at conferences and summits, participating in bundles and different things like that. And the nice things about collaborations is that you're getting in front of already established audiences. You're not having to go out and necessarily find those people. They're already there ready for you. You just have to show up and be your amazing self, essentially. And so I would say like those are some of the main ways, but you also have like in-person networking, like getting out in your community and finding those, local business groups and different things like that where you can connect with people one-on-one in person is so powerful. Like I actually met one of my clients, well, a now client, in person. We went out to lunch and everything, and just getting to connect with her one on one, she ended up joining one of my offers probably like a week or so after we had lunch
Mm.
together. But it's just something about, that human to human connection and everything. And then also referrals, like having a referral based business. So expanding your network, connecting with other business owners who serve a similar audience as you. And, they offer a different service than you, but you guys can refer each other, clients and different things like that. So you have so many different options outside of social media. And I feel like those options, again, give you better leads, give you quality leads, give you leads where these are people who they actually are looking for support. They're actually willing to invest in your services and different things like that.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really good. And so I know that you mentioned first SEO, and for a lot of people that are beginning, they may not understand the concept of SEO. And so, just for reference, SEO, when you're hearing SEO, we're referring to search engine optimization. And so, going back to SEO, because I really, really want to focus on that for a
Yeah.
moment. Where do you feel the best place would be to land for someone that is starting out, someone that's brand new, that has like no type of knowledge about how these things work? Where would you think would be a good place for them to land?
Yeah, so I would say, like, especially if you're thinking about SEO, instead of focusing on starting your own platform, because that can be overwhelming, you can do things like podcast guesting. So, looking
Mm,
for podcasts where they actually have like their show notes on their website and
mm-hmm,
essentially where they can, include your links, like your website link and your information and stuff like that, so people can find you organically that way. You
mm-hmm.
also can do guest blogging. There are a lot of business owners who look for other business owners to contribute to their blog. And again, you
Yeah.
can include your links and your information and everything in that blog post. So I would start with there. And then if you do want to, eventually, start your own platform, so to speak, I would look at how you actually enjoy creating content.
Mm,
Podcasting is not for everybody, and that's okay. So if you're not someone who enjoys being behind the mic, then maybe starting a blog is a better option for you. Like if you love writing and everything, blogging is a great option for you. And it's not like with blogging,
yeah.
like you have to do a new blog every week. Like you can do a blog monthly, you can do one quarterly and everything, because you're leveraging that SEO where people are able to find you organically and everything. So I would say, like, before you commit to podcasting, blogging, or YouTube, figure out what you actually enjoy first. Like I usually recommend for my clients, start with podcast guesting. And then if you actually like that, then let's talk about you starting your own podcast and everything.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And also, I wanted to add to that because I said originally that we met on Instagram, but we originally met on Threads, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm like, we met on but Threads, I just love Threads. Like I didn't even realize how dope Threads was until like maybe a couple weeks ago. But it has been like the marketing, like it's kind of like Twitter mixed with LinkedIn. And I really like it because it's not as like buttoned up as LinkedIn. It's like everybody just shares their thoughts, but it's also like more refined to where it's people that are within your industry. And you don't necessarily have to be following someone in order for their content to post onto your thread. And that's a way that I've used to network and to build my network with people that are in the industry, people that aren't even in the industry. I know the first post that I put out on Threads that really got a lot of traffic was me asking to connect with people that are also mompreneurs or that are side hustling entrepreneurs. So I put out a post and I'm like, hey, I want to connect with, people that have full-time jobs and run a business. Like, what are you doing? What is your business? What is your full-time job? And that thread got like over 1,000 views. It had over, I want to say 60 comments. And it just became like a library of people for me to connect with that I eventually met on Instagram. They ended up following me on Instagram. And then we're like continuing our conversation in the DMs. And so some of them have podcasts, some of them don't. Some of them have businesses online. Some of them have physical brick and mortar. So it was just really interesting to be able to connect with people in a different way. So that's another thing that I'm going to start telling people is like, get on Threads. I know it seems like, oh, not another app, but it can actually be a tool to help you meet with people, to connect with people, to network, to build your visibility through connections, like you were saying. And so I think that that is phenomenal because even within the past couple of weeks, I was looking for podcast guests to appear on my podcast. And I went on Threads and was like, hey, I want to do an episode about this, or I want to do an episode about that. Who is a strategist in this area? Who is this? Like, whose zone of genius is this? And I was able to just connect with so many people. So yes, I agree with that 1,000%. If you don't see yourself physically starting your own YouTube channel or your own podcast or your own blog, just try to pitch yourself or try to connect with people who do have those platforms with similar audiences and be able to leverage and build connections through that. I love that. I love that.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about how, because I also want to hit on you were saying something about referrals. And this is something that I've tried to start to emphasize into my business because I was watching a video about, I want to say it was about visibility on YouTube. And it was talking about how, as an entrepreneur, we feel like we have to always get new clients instead of using our network, using the people that are in our contact list and basically having them refer our services or our business to them or to us, but also rewarding people that refer your business to people. I wanted to talk about referrals and how do you feel about referrals and bringing in referrals into your ecosystem as a way of increasing your visibility, but also not having to work as hard to get new leads and start at the top of the funnel every single time.
Yeah, so I don't currently have a referral program set up, but I am planning to set up one for my membership, the Social Media Detox Club, just because my members sell that program for me. Like, it's how they talk about it. Like, I don't ask them to. They're constantly posting about it on socials, telling all the people in their network about it. But the reason why is because I deliver in that membership. The membership is $97 a month. I treat them as if they're paying me $2K a month or more. Like, and because they get such, so much out of it and the support they're looking for, they can't help but talk about it. They tell their business besties, like, you need to be in this membership right now, and different things like that.
Yeah.
I actually got a voice note from one of the members today saying that she's been telling everybody and whatnot. But I think it's such a powerful thing. Like, ideally, we would love to have a referral based business because
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to worry so much about marketing, right? But I think it all goes back to the customer experience. Like, how are you
Yeah.
treating your clients and everything? And are you creating that memorable experience where, one, they want to stay working with you, but they also can't help but tell other people about it because they love working with you so much? And I think when you really focus on that, that's really going to help you build that referral based business, truly delivering the thing that you said you're going to deliver, not over promising, but also not under delivering, like making
Mm-hmm.
sure you're doing what you say you're going to do and everything. And so I think, especially as moms, we definitely want to do that, but it goes back to, okay, how are you treating your clients when they're working with you? What type of experience are you creating for them and everything like that? And
Mm-hmm.
when you create that phenomenal experience, they're going to tell other people about you and everything like that. I think the biggest thing, though, is also making sure that you're making it clear who your offer is for, because you don't want to get referrals that aren't aligned, because that could be kind of frustrating, especially if it's like a red flag client or something
Yeah.
like that. But I think as long as you're creating this amazing experience and everything, again, your clients, they're gonna sing your praises.
Yeah. 1,000%. And so going back to your process or going back to your alternative way of increasing sales, do you feel like this method works for all businesses? Do you feel like it only works for online businesses or product-based businesses or personal brands?
So let me explain what I mean, like, not relying on social media to build your business. I'm not saying don't be on social media or you don't have to be on social
Got
media.
it.
That's ultimately up to you. But what I find is that most of us, when we enter the online space, we put so much pressure on performing on Instagram, showing up in
Um,
stories, doing the lives, creating the carousels, creating the reels. And then we get so burnt out that we end up just stopping and not marketing our business. But when
that
you
makes sense.
create, like you said, an ecosystem where,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm on Instagram, but I'm focusing more on my podcast, or I'm focusing more on collaborations. And so when I show up on Instagram, I don't feel this pressure, or I could care less if nobody likes my post or engages with my post, because I have these other platforms working for me. That when you have that, that takes the stress off, that stops you from experiencing social media burnout and different things like that. So I just wanted to address that there. But as far as like who can benefit from marketing off socials, all businesses can benefit from it. Just to kind of give an example, I had a client who, she was a STEM coach. So she basically coached other STEM teachers in, creating STEM curriculum and different things like that. And so she wanted to start kind of like a STEM group for kids locally. So what she did was she reached out to one of the local coffee shops, let them know her idea, and they decided to collaborate with her. So essentially she was leading these STEM sessions with the kids, and then their parents were sitting there in the coffee shop drinking coffee. And so they both benefited. They both were making money, but she also was able to help this coffee shop essentially increase their visibility because they got new clients who originally weren't even going there. So
Mm,
whether or not you're, a brick and mortar business or an online business, like, you can benefit from options outside of social media. So it may look different for you, like, especially if you, like, say you're a product based business. Look at your local community, like whether that's going to, like, the local farmers market or different things that they have within the community. Like, the whole goal is to get your offer in front of more people. And so
yeah.
looking at all of the places where your ideal clients are potentially hanging out, because they're not just on social media. Like,
Yeah.
when we focus heavily on social media, we miss out on so much of our audience, especially, like, let's be real, what's going on in the US right now. a lot of people don't want to be on social media because it's triggering. They
Yeah.
don't want to see all of this different content that goes against their values and their beliefs and everything. And so they're not spending as much time on these platforms. And so if you're
Wow.
still relying heavily on socials, you're missing out on all those people who aren't showing up on there. So
Mm-hmm.
looking at how else are my people consuming content? Are they
Mm-hmm.
listening to podcasts? Are they going to, local community events and different things? Are they
Mm-hmm.
attending, summits and conferences and different things like that? Like expand your reach. Like look
Yeah.
at where else you can reach your people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that especially because when I first became on this online space, I originally started off as a influencer and content creator for brands, like partnering with brands. And so I obviously I have learned how to build the muscle of being able to pitch myself to people and to brands. And so as I pivoted into becoming an entrepreneur, that was a skill that I developed several years ago that has like come back to help me and benefit me in so many different ways. And so I think about even with some of the partnerships that I've gotten with like local content houses or with local entrepreneurs, coaches, things of that sort. A lot of those people that I've connected with were because I decided to pitch myself and put myself out there instead of just hiding behind the screen. And so I think that goes back to what you're saying. I mean, I would say a part of also seeing a decline in social media engagement is you're right. A lot of people don't want to be on social media because it is triggering. There's a lot going on, especially now with the whole TikTok ban. A lot of people are like, why am I investing all my time into this thing that could be taken away from me at any given moment? I don't own it. I'm spending a lot of time creating content for it. At one point, it could be gone. Why am I doing this? And so I think that that goes back to show that we definitely need to be spending time on things that are actually going to move the needle rather than spending time on doing things that we see our counterparts do or things that we see other businesses and other people do, because just because it worked for them doesn't mean that it's always going to work for you. So even if you're realizing, or you're seeing that, hey, I've spent this amount of time, I've invested this amount of time, this amount of energy on this one thing. It hasn't been able to convert into any new clients. Let's see how I can move the needle by putting myself out there in other ways, going to events, networking, pitching, cold pitching, DM, sliding in the DM, sending emails. That time would be better spent and well spent by doing those things than scrolling on social media to find content ideas. And then you're on here and now you're like, okay, I'm going to create this content, and then it flops and then you've already spent 2 hours on that one piece of content. So I agree. I think that that is something that a lot of people should definitely start to think about. It can be a little daunting putting yourself out there and pitching, but you just never know. You never know what the results may be. And the worst thing that could happen is someone saying no. That's the worst thing that could
Yeah.
happen. So there's no need of you hiding behind fear of putting yourself out there or being the first person to initiate that type of connection, because you just never know what could happen or what can come out of that. I literally pitched myself to a content house, had an event there, and we did a giveaway. And with that giveaway, I was able to land 2 new clients that ended up paying me to hop on a call with them and walk them through a content strategy. And I would have never gotten those 2 clients if I would have never pitched myself. So it's all about doing things that are actually going to move the needle and being able to audit and seeing what you're spending your time on and what is the thing that you should not spend your time on, like based off of what is converting and what's not converting.
Yes, I agree. And I wanted to touch on something you said about spending the hours like on creating like social media content and stuff like that. One thing that will help you, like if you do want to be on socials, is when you add in like long form content, repurposing it for socials. So like for my
Yeah.
podcast, I repurpose it for threads posts, I repurpose it for emails. Like I can take this large piece of content and break it down into multiple pieces of content, and so it's like you're essentially just planning this one piece of content, and then you can just break it up and share it across platforms. And so that will
Yeah.
even cut down your content creation and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that helps out a lot too, because then you, like, for instance, with this podcast, exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to trim this podcast into some clips. I'm going to post this on socials, but then also I'm going to collaborate with you. And then whoever follows you is going to see my content and I'm going to be able to be exposed to a new audience and vice versa. I collaborate with you. Now you are being exposed to my audience. And so it works both ways instead of you having to reinvent the wheel every single time. Like, how
Yes.
can we make better use of our time and work smarter rather than harder? Instead of having to always create a new piece of content, let's take one content and see how many pieces of content we can take from this one piece of content.
Mhm.
I love that. So I want to get into some practical steps that people can use that are considering pivoting from being social media dependent. So whenever you're thinking about people that are typically relying solely on social media, we talked about how they can leverage collaborations. We talked about how they can leverage SEO, but I want to talk about how all of that plays into email marketing. I've literally been telling my clients since I'm blue in the face, like, you need to grow your email list. You need to grow your email list. And so if you're going to be posting this content, you need to be gearing them to go down your funnel to your email list. And so when you think about collaborations and SEO, what is a tool that you use to get those people off of socials or off of that audience, that new exposed audience, onto your email list?
When it comes to collaborations, like bundles, they're automatically going to get on your email list because essentially they're signing up for whatever resource you contributed to that bundle. And in order for them to get that resource, they have to hand over their email.
Wait, so
But
first of all, sorry. When you talk about bundles, because
yes,
like I have some baby entrepreneurs in here. So when you talk
yeah, let
about
me break
bundles,
down
what?
what bundles are. So, bundles are essentially you partner with other business owners who serve a similar audience as you. And so, essentially, the person who is hosting the bundle, you provide them or you give them like access to a resource. Like usually it's a paid resource that you have that you essentially make available for free during this collaboration. And so essentially everybody who's participating, they share about the bundle with their audience, whether it's via email or on socials. And so people who sign up, they're taken to this page that has like all of the resources listed and they just go through and decide which resources they want to sign up for. And so when they sign up, essentially they have to hand over their name and email to access that resource.
I gotcha. So when you say bundle, because when I think, I don't know why my brain goes here. I think about people that have like a digital course. And so if you have, say you have a digital course that you are launching, but you want to do like a segment on marketing, essentially, is it that I'm providing you like my marketing segment to your audience for free that I typically would charge? Is that what you're saying?
Sort of. It doesn't have to necessarily be like a digital course. It can be a PDF. It can be a template or anything like that. But to kind of give an example, so I hosted a bundle. It was called the Social Media Detox Bundle. And everyone who contributed a resource, it was something that helped participants essentially build a business that wasn't reliant on social media. So I had a contributor who was a web designer who provided a website template. So, like, say you were redoing your website, now you have this template you can use. I had someone else who it was like a mini course on sales strategy, you know, selling via email and other platforms outside of social media that people were able to sign up for and access it. So it's different types of resources, but again, it's usually something that people have to pay for. So you don't have to necessarily contribute your whole course. Like maybe you just contribute a specific module from that
I
course.
see.
And then you can even do like an upsell or a tripwire where they can pay for the full course if they want to access it that way or something like that.
I see.
Yeah, but that's essentially what bundles are.
I gotcha. And so going back to the original question, you leverage bundles with other people within the industry to build your email list. So basically, when they sign up for the bundle, they have to provide their email address. And how does that work on the back end with, logistically? Because if someone is signing up for our bundle and they're going onto your website, how do I get their email address?
So, as the host, you get everyone's email address because they're giving you you their name and email to get access to, they call it the gift page that has everyone's resources
Mm-hmm.
listed and linked. So as the host, you get everyone's email. But then if people can go through the gift page and whatever resources stand out to them that they were like, ooh, I want to sign up for this. Then they have to click a link that takes them over to another page where they'll enter their name and email to access that specific
I
resource.
see.
Yeah.
That is impressive. That's impressive. So, is that like a certain platform that you would have to use, or can you like host that on your own website? I guess essentially you could.
So the gift page and even the registration page, yes, would be hosted on your website, but you would use your email marketing platform for people to register. So, like for instance, with ConvertKit, you would just create, I can't think of what the form type is, but it's one that you can embed on your website.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, they enter their name and email, and then you would set it up on your end where they get a specific tag and then are added to like a specific
Yeah.
sequence that gives them the link to the gift page and all of that.
Y'all already know I'm all about working smarter and not harder, especially when it comes to marketing your brand. And if you're still relying only on social media to reach your audience, we need to fix that immediately. Social media is cute, but let's be real, the algorithm is unpredictable, and your content is probably only reaching a small percentage of your followers. That's why I swear by email marketing, because when I send an email, I know 100% of my subscribers are getting my messages. And the best part, Flowdesk makes it ridiculously easy. You can send beautiful on-brand emails, automate your sequences, and even create landing pages without needing to be tech savvy. And because you're listening, I got you a deal. Use my code SIDEHUSTLE at checkout and you'll get 50% off your Flowdesk subscription for the next 12 months. So if you're ready to stop relying on algorithms and start building an email list that actually converts, try Flowdesk for free. And don't forget to use the code SIDEHUSTLE at checkout for that exclusive 50% off.
So within collaborations, even like speaking at virtual summits and events, you would just make sure to pitch like a lead magnet to get people on your email list. And one thing with that is you want to make sure whatever the resource you're pitching is connects to the topic you're speaking on. So that way, like that resource is the next logical step people would take. And then even with podcast guesting, so like I'm going to share with you guys about my free private podcast, Make Social Media Optional, since that's what we're talking about today. And so, sharing that free resource that people can sign up for that way. So that's with collaborations, like one way I do it. But then also I leverage my podcast to grow my email list. So I do a mix of, in my episodes, like I will pitch a specific offer, or I would pitch either like my private podcast or pitch my email list in general, just because I talk about marketing without social media on my email list, and my email community gets more of the behind the scenes, like they're more of like my VIPs and everything like that. So exclusive access to new offers and different things like that. But I use my podcast that way as well, even with blogging. If I'm speaking on a certain topic in a blog post and I have like a lead magnet that connects to that topic, I will, include the link to sign up for that lead magnet. So just those different ways. And then even just having a pop up on my website for one of my lead magnets, like that's been really good. So anytime new people come to my website, they immediately see that pop up and people join my email list that way. So there's lots of different ways to do it. I would say the biggest thing is just talking about your email list, whether that's telling people about your lead magnet or even just selling people on joining your email list. Like whether that's they're going to get access to exclusive content or access to, exclusive offers and discounts and different things like that. But just telling people about your email list and everything.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And while we're talking about new strategies to implement, I also want to hit on the most common mistakes that you see people make whenever they are switching from becoming social media dependent. I like the word social media dependent now. Social media dependent. So, what are some common mistakes that you see people make that are making that switch from relying solely on social media?
One mistake I see people make is that they completely just ghost their social media community without saying anything. And you don't want to do that. Like, you want to tell people what's going on and everything Plus, you want to give them that opportunity to connect with you on, whatever platform you are going to be showing up on. So whether that's driving them to, your podcast or your YouTube, or driving them to your email list, because the reality is that you have quality leads within that community. Like, you've been putting your energy in growing and connecting with that community. So you don't want to just leave them hanging, like up and disappear, and they're like, where did she go? So I would say that's like the biggest thing I see people do. So don't do that. And I would say even just taking some time to kind of transition away from socials, like if that is your plan where you just want to step away completely. So again, like taking time and actually telling people what's going on and driving them to your email list so that way they can stay connected to you. So that's one mistake. And then the other mistake I see is people trying to implement all of the different platforms outside of social media at once, and it becomes overwhelming. So
Yeah.
they want to launch the podcast and the YouTube channel, start the blog, start doing collaborations, and then they get burnt out. So I wouldn't do that. Like, I would take it slow, especially if you haven't been doing those things already. Take your time. Like, you don't have to launch the podcast and the YouTube channel at the same time.
Yeah.
We could start with an audio only podcast first, add in YouTube later.
Yeah.
Or start with collaborations. I feel like collaborations are so low lift because they don't require a lot on your part. For me, doing this podcast interview, I don't have to edit this. Like, that's not my responsibility. So you can start with doing something like that just to kind of fill it out and making sure that it's something you actually enjoy doing and everything. And then go from there and adding in little by little, more and whatnot. But one thing I'm big on, and I tell all the mamas I serve, is looking at your current capacity. Like, what can you realistically commit to in this season of life? Starting the podcast may not be something that you can do right now, and that's okay. Like, you can add it in later.
Yeah.
So really looking at what makes sense for you right now, what you can realistically do right now, and start with that, and then gradually adding in more.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And also, I know that you have your podcast as well. So I did want to let people know that you have your podcast. And if you wanted to check her out, definitely check her out. Her podcast is called Marketing Without Socials for Moms. So I just wanted to plug that in there because I do feel like podcasting is absolutely amazing because one, like whenever, and it is very mutual. Even though I have to edit the podcast, it's not a lot of like preparation as it is for like solo episodes. So it's mutually beneficial. On one hand, you have someone that's a guest that speaks about a topic that they, can talk about in their sleep. But then on the other hand, like for me, it's not a lot of preparation on the back end. Like I don't have to come up with an outline. I don't have to figure out the title. I don't have to come up with the outline. Like all I need to do is just think of some questions to give to my guests. But then also we just come on here and have organic conversation as if we're just sitting here having coffee, chatting with one another about our industry. So it definitely is good. But if you don't have the bandwidth to do all the editing and the promos and all that stuff, I definitely wouldn't suggest for you to just hop into something that's so foreign. Like she was saying before, start with just going on other people's podcasts, going on live. I feel like Instagram Live is another thing that a lot of people don't really take advantage of. But even if you go on live with other people, that's another way of collaborating in the video format so people can gauge your personality. That's really what people want to be able to see. Before they invest in you, what is your personality like? How is your character? How do you show up? Do they actually like you? Do they feel like they can know you? Do they feel like they can trust you? Do they feel like you're a credible person for somebody to spend their money on? And so that's really what people are looking for before they decide to buy. It's not about how perfect your content is. It's not about how great your video is. It's not about what outfit you have on. It's just about you and your area of expertise. Do you actually really know what you're talking about? Can I trust to spend my money with this person? Okay, does she really know what she's talking about? Or is she just out here just trying to scam and get our money and talk about, something random? That's what people want to know. And so long form content, podcasting is a definitely good way of being able to increase your credibility, even if it's not necessarily your podcast. Just hopping on other people's and getting your voice out there to the masses, one episode at a time, one live at a time, one video at a time, or one panel or speaking engagement at a time. That's
Yeah.
really it. So, and I think also where it ties into being a mom, because I know you were talking about balance and having capacity. Like, I want to know what your insight is, because even you as a podcast host, having a business, having all of the things, like, how do you manage to do it all?
I don't do it all. No, I seriously I don't. So one thing, like you'll go to my Instagram and I don't really post anything. Like I do try to update my feed quarterly, like I'll do like a 9 or 12 grid, but that platform hasn't served me well in my business, so I don't put energy into it. But as far as like for content creation, repurposing makes it so easy for me. I start with my podcast. I plan my podcast content. So like right now I'm finishing up planning March podcast content. Then I'm going to go through that content that I plan for the podcast and look at, okay, what emails can I write from this content? And
Mm,
then I'm going to go through and look, okay, what thread posts can I create from this content?
I like that.
And usually what I do for like threads, because I use for my podcast Cast Magic, so it spits out a transcript and it gives like content ideas and a whole bunch of stuff. And so I just pull from that. Like I'll pull out specific quotes and go like, oh, okay, ooh, let me expand on this a little bit more, make it a threads post. And I schedule out my threads posts. So like my threads post, those posts that you see, like that's not me posting live. Like all of that was scheduled out and stuff like that. So like that, like having this streamlined system and really, really repurposing content, like because we create a lot of content as business owners and kind of like what you were saying earlier, we're constantly like, oh, I need to create something new. No, you don't. You don't. Not everybody has seen, that piece of content. Not everybody has listened to that podcast episode. So break it up, repurpose it, put it on different platforms. And
Hmm.
sometimes people need to hear the same thing multiple times before it
Yeah.
finally clicks.
Yeah.
So I do that as far as like the content creation and marketing sales side of things and everything like that. But then also like how I serve my clients. Like I can't do a whole bunch of live calls, and my clients get it
Mm,
because they're primarily moms. They don't have the time to hop on live calls too. So
yeah.
coaching and stuff like that, we do that via Voxer. As far as like the
Mm.
membership, we do monthly co-working calls and then a monthly live workshop or training, which I've been doing a lot of guest speakers just because I know a lot about marketing without social media, but I know there are a lot of experts who can dive deeper into these topics. And so I open up my community to these experts and stuff. So like we had a guest expert that came in this week who was talking to us about increasing our visibility through like article features and stuff like that. And it was so,
Nice.
so good. But I do things differently. I look at what I can realistically do. Like, I'm not going to run myself into the ground for this business. And so if it's something that is not serving me well or I just don't want to do it, I don't do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my attitude with it and everything. And then looking at what I can simplify, and then of course outsourcing where I can outsource. So like for instance with my website, anytime there's an update, I got my web designer there. I'm not
Hmm.
doing it. I don't have the time for it. I give her what she needs and she handles it and
Yeah.
everything like that. But I think just being okay with, as a mom, it's okay to do things differently. You're not
Yeah.
going to do things the way that all these other people out there are doing it. The so-called gurus and experts are telling you to do it because a lot of them, they don't have kids. They don't
No.
get it.
Mm-mm.
So just doing things differently.
Yeah. And I love that, because I feel like when people find that piece of difference, that's where they typically thrive. Like, because you're being different, you're doing something that hasn't been done before. And so, even I think about myself where I've tried to like put myself into all of these boxes that I saw other people create. And I'm like, that sounds brilliant. Like, let me do that. Or that sounds brilliant. Let me do that. And so, even with me finding my different of being a side hustler, I feel like that was a community of people that was just not served at all. And so, even just being in this space, I've seen how there's a need and there's a sense of community that people need when they're on this journey. And that's my different. And so, even just finding your ways of doing business different, It doesn't matter what the next person that's in your industry that's doing. Like, focus on you, focus on what works for you, what works for your lifestyle, what works for your family, what works for yourself and your mental being, your mental capacity. Just like you were saying, coaching on Voxer, everyone feels like they have to show up on one-on-one calls, video, all of the things, but you are literally finding your way of doing things different, but still providing the same amount of value to your customers. So I commend you for that. I love that. I did want to ask you before we hop off. So, because I know that you said you're podcasting, you're on Threads, you do your quarterly feed updates, you have your emails. Like, if you could think of a pie, like, and what percentage of time you allot for each, area, what would you break your pie down into?
Ooh, so I would say probably I spend the most time on the podcast. So for like full production, editing, scheduling the episodes, scheduling the show notes, writing the show notes. I also leverage Pinterest for my podcast. So creating the pins for that, like that full process takes me about an hour
Please
per
tell me you have
episode.
someone creating your pins for you, because that's insane.
No, I do it. Like I have templates. It doesn't take long.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
so
makes
like for
sense.
the
That makes
full
sense.
yeah, for the full process it takes about an hour, which I mean, that's because I'm creating essentially multiple pieces of content
Yeah.
within the podcast and stuff. So I would say that probably takes the longest. With my emails, I give myself no more than 10 to 15 minutes to write an email. Like if I'm sitting there staring at the screen, it's just time to end the email. Like that's it. Like
Yeah.
and that's something I had to set a boundary with myself because I'm a recovering perfectionist. And
Come
so,
on, me
and
too.
it's like, girl, you cannot spend hours on a single email. So now that I've really like found my voice in email marketing and stuff, like it doesn't take me long to write an email. Like I'll get an idea for an email like when I'm in the bathtub and I'll like, oh, let me grab my phone and I will write the email right there in my notes app and that email will be done. I just need to schedule
Yes.
it and ConvertKit. And then as far as like collaborations, because that's another part of what I do, I have created a streamlined process. So like I call it like a collaborations assets document. So it has all of my signature topics in it. It has like the links to like my headshot. It has my bio, like everything in one place. And
That's so
so
brilliant.
it takes me like 5-10 minutes to apply for different collaborations and stuff. So
That is brilliant.
yeah, I created it for my membership because one of the mamas was like, it takes me a long time. Okay, let me create something for y'all. So I did that.
Wow.
And so now, like, even with the members, it doesn't take them a long time to apply for collaborations because they have literally everything in one place. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I would say like the podcast probably takes up, I guess you could say maybe 75% of the pie, and then everything else would be like applying for collaborations, and then what else? The threads content, which is repurposing content.
Repurposed.
Yeah, so
But
yeah.
because the podcast is solely the entryway of your content, that's why a lot of that time is spent there, because
Yeah.
everything else follows after the podcast content.
Yes, I say my podcast is like my main converter. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have seen it where someone found my podcast, binged the episodes, and within 2 weeks opted into one of my offers. I think the shortest amount of time it's taken someone to convert, it was like 10 days.
Mm,
So yeah, so like I focus heavily on the podcast because that I call it my money maker. Like
yeah.
people listen to my podcast and are like, okay, I need to work with her. Like so yeah, I spend the bulk of my time there, but because it's serving me well, I'm seeing the results, I'm seeing the conversions and everything. It makes sense to me to focus my time and energy there.
Yeah, I love that. So, if you are in a place of wanting to try out some different things of increasing your visibility, the number one thing would just be to put yourself out there and try different things. So, try the SEO strategies, try collaborations, try networking, see what works, but give yourself time to implement those strategies. Don't just do it one time, say it doesn't work, and then not do it again. Give
Yeah.
yourself time to do it. But then once you figure out that thing that works for you, that should be the place where you land and spend most of your time. And basically take that place, repurpose it to other methods and other platforms and other streamlined areas, and then continue to recreate that system. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm so excited, but I do want to give you an opportunity to tell the audience where they can follow you, where they can learn about you, where they can connect with you, and just learn about your work and your business.
Yeah, so I would say the number one place is my podcast, Marketing Without Socials for Moms. It's available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. That's where you can learn more about me, but also just learn different strategies for building your business outside of social media, and then learn more about like my coaching style and different things like that. But outside of the podcast, I am very active on Threads. So if you want to follow me on there, my handle is Mama Turn Mompreneur. And then definitely check out my private podcast, Make Social Media Optional. I dive into email marketing, podcasting, and collaborations, and how you can leverage each of those to sign clients.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you so much again for joining me today. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Side Hustler Podcast. I hope you're leaving here today feeling inspired and ready to take your next step. If you love this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another side hustler who needs to hear it. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Carly Dorlin. I'd love to hear about your side hustling journey. Remember, you're doing better than you think, and your dreams are so worth it. Until next time, keep hustling, sis. You got this.